It says I'm live. And are you still out there, Douglas? Right. Hopefully, I'm not talking to myself. Oh, YouTube just told me I'm live. Okay. Well, it tells me that there's 2 people online. I don't know if I count as one of them. Oh, okay. Douglas says it's working. Yeah, it's not the best video cam setup, but it's in my, I'll call it my man cave room. I'd like to put it in my workroom, but then I'd have to do it from my laptop, and I haven't done much with that. But there's a little bit of glare I see. Maybe if I turn this light off here. Sorry about that. No, that might help a little bit. I'm darker, lighter. Anyway, I'm glad at least you're here. We had a change of season here this morning. It was like 48 degrees out at 7, which is a welcome change from the upper 90s. And so I start my day off a little bit later when it gets a little bit colder. Anyway, so I hope there's some questions or comments, or, whenever I hit another 1,000 subscribers, I'm going to do one of these things at least. For me, it's kind of different. Hopefully I get some people joining and asking questions. Towards the end, I'll tell you how to enter to win the NeoHipo ET30 AB amplifier switcher. And hopefully NeoHipo sends that to the winners. I don't have them. They said they'll send them, but I've been working with them just on some of their products, and they seem to be pretty good about responding to emails and maybe taking some advice I may give them on their product. Anyway, that's it. There's not a lot of audio you can see in this room. I'm not going to be moving the camera around. I have 2 speakers you can see in the corner. There's a NHT, and what is the other one? Energy Connoisseur, and they're for my home theater, 5.1 system, as well as my quad system. So the energy speakers, and there's a total of 4 of them, are hooked up to my quad receiver, which is hooked up to a quad 8-track, which I play every now and then. It's a time machine, I call it. And it's the Marantz 4470, the classic look. I did a video on it, and I ended up working a deal with my buddy Ian for it. So yeah, I like that Marantz just because it's a quad. It works fine for when you've got 4 speakers to it, and just use it in stereo mode. And it has that that Marantz tax look, so that's kind of fun. But anyway, I hope there's something somebody can ask me, or comment on. I'm assuming that it's working. I just see one thing. Yeah, okay, I have just the one chat. So that's kind of what's going on. I might have a line on a new speaker to review, and we'll see about that. There's a guy in my audio video club, a new member, who is a distributor for I want to say Linear, but Lennar. Anyway, they're like a Magnepan kind of speaker, and he's interested in getting the word out. And I told him if he drives it up here, he's up in the Phoenix area, that I would do a review like I do on any other speaker, and measure the impedance and the frequency response in my room, and you can compare it to some of the other speakers. I've never measured a panel speaker, I guess I'll call it like that, but that might be kind of fun, although it's new. I mean, it's not vintage, but I don't always do vintage stuff. So that's kind of a potential video for the future. I know I get requests from people about certain gear, and I basically am at the whim of what my the two people I get stuff from, Richard and Ian, have a lot of gear that they bring me, and as needed. And so that's kind of where I draw my gear from. Some of it's my own gear that I have, and I haven't tested all of my own gear, but that's, I can't just say, oh, I'm going to grab a piece of think of a brand name, Emotiva or something, and test it. I don't, just don't have access to people that have a lot of that gear. Anyway, it's pretty quiet out there. I see there's a couple people online. Oh, here's one. Oh, Bob. Oh, Final Speakers. Thank you, Bob. Yes, that is the company, and I'm hoping to get those or work with a guy who, I guess he's going to be a distributor for them, and I would like to get. They have a hybrid where they actually have, say, a regular woofer in for the bass driver, and hopefully we'll work out a thing where he brings some up, and then we may use them even for an AB. Yes, Ravi is the gentleman, and use them for an AB test speaker, not to AB them, but we're going to do another AB test against two vintage receivers, it looks like, and those may play through a speaker like that, although they could also play through another vintage like the Macintosh XRT 17s are actually a very nice sounding speaker that we used for the last AB test. So hopefully that'll be in the future with my group of local audiophiles, I'll call us, from Tucson, as well as like Bob has come up for a couple of these AB tests. It's about a 2-hour drive or so from Phoenix to Tucson, and we have a good time usually when we do these AB tests, and everybody gets something out of it, surprisingly. And you usually are surprised at the results of some of the findings. We try to make the things blind to where you don't know what you're really listening to, and then draw your own conclusion about which one sounds better or not. So that's upcoming. In fact, I'm going to probably touch base with Ravi from Final Speakers later on this afternoon and try to work out a time when our schedules will allow us to connect. It takes about a day to measure the speakers by the time you set it up and bring the equipment over and measure the impedance and the sound pressure level, and then listen to it. I mean, not a full day. It's not like an 8-hour day. It's just takes some time to align the microphone and align it by pointing it at the right spot on the speaker and make sure it's a meter away and it's level and all that kind of thing. Or you could, I guess, most of the time I point the microphone rather than have it vertical, but you can do either. And just make sure they're the right distance and the right spot in the room, and that the data looks okay. And then you use different equipment to actually measure the impedance of the speaker. So it takes a while, and then to listen to it for 45 minutes or so and just kind of see what you think it sounds like, and then do of course a video, me talking about it. Douglas, make it blind or yeah, Douglas. Douglas is a real friend of the channel, a guy who knows what's going on, and I like to make it well, I can't make it blind to me because I'm hooking it up, but the way where they don't really know and they just know one's an A or a B, they can kind of develop a preference. I mean, if I had the money, I would buy one of those who makes that? Van Alstyne switcher. I think they're about $1,200 to $1,400, and it's you don't know what it's testing, but for the purposes of the people that are involved, the way that it is where we can't really, I cover stuff up or try to, and so they don't really know what they're switching between, and you match the levels if we're doing 2 receivers, and that looks to be like the next A/B test. I've got one of the receivers picked out, and these are from probably the 70s, mid 70s, about the same wattage, and so I'll do testing, and the main thing on the receivers is I want to make sure that the frequency response looks pretty flat, and that the THD looks fairly similar, and then when I hook them up, I match the levels at 1 kilohertz, and then I check it at 440 hertz, and then I will go ahead and we'll switch between them, and then the people can fill out a little questionnaire. I'm sure Bob has been to, I believe, 2 of these. Doug, you're too far away, but I'm sure you enjoy. It's a nice little get together here. We usually have some food and drink, and if we do it at Richard's house, he has a bunch of gear and a lot of interesting gear. And you've seen some of the video. Yes, thanks, Bob. You've seen some of the videos. He's he keeps bringing me. He has a habit of buying stuff, and then of course I will check it. Sometimes he should have me check it before he buys it, but anyway, it's just kind of a fun get together from group of people. Usually we're older. I like to get some younger folks in there with maybe some younger ears. Yeah, pizza, usually pizza and beer, and for people that don't drink, there's usually soda, of course, water. And it's just you get a bunch of audiophiles together, and they like talking audio stuff, just like car guys like talking car guys, or sports guys like talking sports stuff. So anyway, that's kind of a fun thing. As far as the videos, I like to I shoot the videos. I think I explained this. So I may have probably about a dozen things I've already measured and shot the raw footage, and then I'll get into editing and then uploading them. So I'm usually several videos ahead, and I try to do mainly vintage gear, but vintage to me is anything over about 2000. But there's some stuff that's 10 years old, and then in a few weeks I have a pair of Pilot AA903, I think, tube amps, mono tube amps that I'll be reviewing, and those are from the 50s, I believe. And that's kind of you just never know what to expect. Tomorrow's, I think, I'm not going to say what it is, but hopefully it'll be something different. It's a little bit different piece of gear that I'm testing, and if you're ever wondered about how one of these things affects your system, this kind of will tell you. But anyway, that'll be an interesting one. I'm always curious about the reactions I get from the viewers. There's some people that actually the 2 guys that are here, Bob and Doug, watch a lot of the videos. It tells me there's more people online, but you're being quiet, or maybe you're in a mobile and you just want to check out. So I'll keep going till I have questions. But in the background, there's a picture of a train. It's one of my early that came here to Tucson, one of my early photography things. And then there's below it is a picture of the inside of my Corvette, which I just totaled yesterday. Not on purpose. I was involved in a crash, turning left, no injuries. I'm maybe a little sore. The airbags went off. So my 2004 Corvette is totaled. Luckily, the other people's are seem to be okay. Just maybe soreness when your airbags go off. So that's at least I have a good picture of it, and I'll be shopping for another vehicle, probably a little bit newer Corvette. And then there's a picture of my youngest boy playing. He was a catcher in high school ball, and then my other son is in the other picture with Chuck Norris, and that was at like a Comic-Con thing And he's holding up a program that I had Chuck Norris sign in 1975 up in Phoenix that I kept. And anyway, oh, okay, I have a new one. Yeah, pizza, beer, speakers, good time, amplifiers. Yeah, and that's good. And Dan, thanks for, I appreciate that. Dan, thanks for, I'm a fan of Carver Gear. Yes. So from, I guess one of the things I get out is of the thing is like once a night, I'll look at how my views, what views the current video is doing. And Carver Gear gets a lot of views, as well as those Radio Shack Mach 2 speakers. Surprisingly amount of views. And some of the amps, some of the Yamaha amps, but Carver is always a good showing. They're very loyal. I mean, I like Carver. I have several pieces. Sorry to hear about. Yes, Jake. I guess the silver lining in the vet was I was looking at the son in the Chuck Norris picture there. He works from he works up in Seattle. He's doing quite well, and he just bought a 2023 Corvette convertible for way more money than I spent probably on all my vehicles in my life. And so I figured maybe Dad can break down and get a not a C8, but a C7 I'm looking at. But eventually, yeah, I just like Corvettes. If you've had a Corvette, it's just one of those. This was my first Corvette, and it's something about it. I don't drive fast. Once I got it up to like 92 or 93 to pass somebody, but yeah, I get flipped off. I'm the guy who gets flipped off on the freeway for going, 60 in a 55 zone. Anyway, though, I try to do the speed limit, except going on the frontage road to the freeway. Sometimes people in Mustangs or Chargers would want to race me or pass me, and I won't let that happen. So then I hit it. But you're entering the freeway, and in here it's like 65 is the speed limit, so you could get up to 70, no problem. But anyway, Paul, be very impressed on the bandwidth on the Marantz 223800 kilohertz square wave resembling one. Pretty good by any standard, I think. A lot of fun getting it to work. 12 weekends or so. Okay, you did one. I don't test 100 kilohertz square waves. I started doing 1 kilohertz, measuring the rise time in a couple of videos, just for something different to do and looking at the phase. I do like the Marantz. We might use a Marantz receiver in our, actually the Quadrile, the, what is it, 2270 or the, it's the Quad Marantz I did a review on that you can set it up for 2-channel stereo. And so I think you get 70 watts. So I'm thinking of having that in the test just to see if Marantz sounds different. To be honest, I would be surprised if there's any difference between the sound of any of the two receivers. Doug may know this. In the old stereo days, well, like when I, in the 80s, maybe late 70s, they used to do square wave testing in all the reviews like Audio or Stereo Review, which were the two magazines I got. And they usually would have the 8 ohm load and they had some capacitor across it, but I can't find out what capacitor they used. I would add that to my test if I could, but right now it's just a square wave into an 8 ohm, my 8 ohm loads. And I just do the 1 channel. And, I've seen a difference between some of the gear is a little bit slower or faster, but it's just kind of just something to be different. I'm kind of, a measurement guy, and, measurements can tell us a lot. A lot of people, may not, we can quantify when you think about it. You can quantify, everything that's going to the speakers pretty much with electrical measurements. Good old point. 0.01 ceramic. Okay. Thank you, Doug. I'm going to write that down. Maybe I'll try that and just see what happens. I'd imagine you get some ringing. So I may do that. Who wants to guess what I have on my bench right now? Bob may know because I mentioned it last night, but for an upcoming video. It's the first piece of their gear I've tested. Anyone want to guess? Nobody's going to guess it. So I have a Corel preamp from around 1990, and it's has a separate power supply. And I'm not a fan of a separate power supply for your preamp. And there's no on-off switch, so they always want you to leave it on, and I don't really get that. I know the Carver gear, Dan, like the M401, the 401A cubes, they're designed to always be on. I am not a fan of always leaving things on. I could see with tube gear, maybe you want it on maybe a half hour before you run it, but to have a solid state preamp that costs that much money from Corel, I'm not sure why they always want it on. So in our little, I'm in an Arizona audio video club, and what I'm gonna do is test the Corel cold and then let it set for an hour and go back and test it. I mean, just frequency response in THD, and that'll be part of the video on that, just to see if there's any real difference. I would be surprised that something like that would take that much time to stabilize. I do see it with older, with receive, a lot of receivers, sometimes they take a while, or even amplifiers may take a while, 10 minutes before the noise level, which you probably wouldn't hear, but you certainly can see it on the analyzer. But yeah, that's kind of fun things. I get these odd things to test. Somebody had some ohm speakers that they may be bringing over to test. I don't know which ones. I guess they're cylindrical. So I have some other things in the future to do. But Douglas amps can do 100 kilohertz. You get a bit of edges. Yeah, well, I could certainly try that, Douglas. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't. I'll have to see how my signal generator does. It's an old Heathkit generator, and I haven't tested it at 100 kilohertz. I think it goes that high, but yeah, I've seen a difference. Well, I shouldn't say a difference. Most amps run, 5 to, I'll say 4 to 8 microseconds on the rise time for the ones that I've measured so far, and preamps are about the same. Sometimes they, I see a difference in phase, just for curiosity more than anything else. What is the phase going out? And to me, the big difference is if there's a phase shift between the left and right channel, and usually there's not, which is good. But sometimes there is, especially at 10 kilohertz. But I just thought I'd do something else. Yeah, it helps if the sig gel. I don't know. I did a video on my early videos on the Heathkit. I put in the low distortion mod for it. Heathkit's actually alive and well, sort of. And so there was a mod kit to lower the distortion. I did a video on that, but I've never thought of testing up to 100 kilohertz. But I may do that. I put the 400 power strip when listening. Yes, they're a good match. Yeah, the 400 would be on a power strip. That's fine. And I had mine hooked up as mono blocks too at the 400As till I recapped them, because they would shut off when I got kind of loud, and they get hot, and then they go into protect mode. So I ended up recapping them, and after one of them took me once, and the other one I had to disassemble 5 times. They're a real pain to work on, but I'm starting to use one of them now as a bench amp. Sometimes if I'm testing a preamp, and they work really well. As long as you don't play like if you're going up maybe 125 watts or 150 watts for half hour or 45 minutes, depending on your speaker load, they may shut down. That's what I found. But you know, they come back on. They're pretty well protected, I've found. And they're just cute. I mean, they're lightweight, and you know, they have a little bit of noise if you get up and listen to them, or if you test them. Dan, did you ever like with my analyzer, it actually sends out like a little pulse. That's kind of how it does its FFT thing, and you can hear the transformers in those making thunk. So Carver isn't the only one, but you'll hear that every now and then. But yeah, I like the 408s. They're just not. I don't use them as much. But I used them as mono blocks driving my KEF 107s for quite a while, and then I recapped them and stuff. But they're kind of like a bench amp now, sort of, for, you know, quick tests. I used that Bryston 2B LP as well as another bench amp. Oh, here we go. Yeah. Oh, on the power. So I actually built a little switchable relay to turn the Carvers on and off. So I have this monster nice power strip that I got from my good buddy Ian, and so it has a switchable some switchable outlets. So if your preamp comes on, it senses the current draw, and then it'll switch some outlets on if you wanted to, and some outlets on if you wanted to. And so I had the Carvers hooked into that, and it worked pretty good. But yeah, I don't like those things running. I think that's part of the problem with the Carvers is if I can't fix them by unplugging, they go to the technician. Oh, you have no skills. Okay. Yeah, well, I appreciate you being part of the channel, because a lot of stuff I do, the honest reason I went to YouTube was because I never did a website. I could figure it out, but I thought the easiest way to do stuff would be to do a YouTube channel, and it's real easy to just post stuff. And I'm kind of a little niche. There's there's just Amir at ASR that he'll do some older stuff, and he's, to me, the best at measurement stuff. And there's like Novolux Stereo. He does a lot of refurbs of real high end gear, I would say, and he does a great job. And sometimes he'll test stuff. He'll measure distortion and that kind of thing. And there's a few channels that do a lot of or do some measurements. Eddie at KISS Analog does some things with measurements. Oh, Jake, I have carry tube monoblocks, but they heated out my room, so I moved them out for the summer. I have an upcoming video on carry monoblocks. I wished I knew the model. Oh, well, it's glad that it's clear. I mean, it's just data. I try to put chapters in the. It takes me a long time when I do a video to rewatch it, see if I screwed up real badly, and then I'll put in chapters, THDs here, so you could fast forward if you wanted to. I know I'm trying to make some little comments as I'm doing this to, make the audio a little bit funnier, but one intermittent. So let me go. Yeah, I can get that about tube gear. Some tube gear gets quite hot, and if you live in an area like like Tucson or Phoenix, where you're running air conditioning a lot in the summer, you probably want to keep things cooler. But the carries, my buddy brought those, and I am not a fan of carry. I without pulling up the file, I couldn't tell you which ones. Maybe I'll get a chance to do that. But I was not impressed. I contacted the company for a schematic. They did send me something, but yeah, those just were just a weird going on. They sounded okay, but yeah, they measured like crap. But some things, oddly, with tube gear, mainly, some of it doesn't sound bad if they got real like distortions. I don't know, maybe the guitar players like to add those distortion boxes in that. I don't play instruments, but with some of the tube stuff, surprisingly. Paul B went through hell and back with this one intermittent bias double diode on my food delete on measured fine. What is it that we're talking about? Paul B, you said you went on a intermittent bias double diode. I'm not sure exactly. Oh, 1N 4150. What is the piece of gear? Include the lead on. Oh, yeah, that's no fun when stuff goes up in smoke. Yeah. I don't have that happen too often. Occasionally it does, and it's never a nice thing. In fact, I really, still on the Marantz. Okay. Yeah, this comments have done. Let me, for Jake, let me find what that mono block is from Carrie. Just so, oh, here we are. Carrie, SLM 70 is the mono blocks that, let's see if that's true. Yes, SLM 70. So yeah, I haven't started. I have all the stuff done. I just haven't done it. Joe Rogan. I'm not sure. Joe Rogan. Podcaster. Did he pass away? Oh, I kind of an ostrich when it comes to a lot of stuff, unless it pops up on my YouTube feed. For the most part. So yeah, I don't know what's going on, Danny, but thanks for turning in. Jake, are your carries the SLM 70s? I hope not. I mean, they look nice. Some of these things look real nice, but yeah, I don't get it. There will be a video on, a pass. No, I think it is, some of these things that are low power that cost thousands of dollars. Yeah, that's 25 watts per channel. You talk a little about the Yamaha M70 I reviewed a while back. I have one pairing. So that was Ian. So that was like a couple years ago, and I have trouble without going back and rewatching the video. I hate to say it because I do test, test one thing a week, listen to one thing a week, work on a video. The more modern tendency. I'm not familiar with the 4430s, but that should be plenty of power for some JBLs. The Yamaha, I think they do pretty good, and the Yamaha M80 is one of the top, review numbers that I get, and so that's kind of like the big thing for me is to, and Ian, my buddy Ian, we're always interested in what people find real exciting for the different videos. There's not a lot of videos showing the some of the stuff that we do, and if I can do a repair, and I'm not going to show you me unscrewing it or soldering it. I kind of just point out where the problem was, maybe as I can, and but I haven't been getting a lot of things from my buddies that I can do videos on, showing a repair. Occasionally I get people wanting me to fix their stuff, but to send it to Tucson, some of the gear, and it's just not really economical. And that mine are the Slam 1000 Monroe. I'm not familiar with Slam. Oh, okay, those are your yeah, that's what Jake said. Yeah, Carver tube amps. I know they got knocked in on the ASR site, one of their more modern tube amps, for whatever the reasons, maybe poor workmanship. There's Carver was part of the company, then they just used their name, and the stuff that I've tested has been good, other than the cubes. When they're going bad, you can see a lot of the noise, and I think part of the problem was with the cubes is they're always on, and so you always have some voltage applied across the capacitors, and they go bad. Yeah, I mean, there has a new tube amp, which is the new Carver one, which is probably real nice, and of course phase linear gear. I haven't tested any phase linear gear, but the Carver amps You know, the M1.5T is a nice amp. Somebody was a viewer contacted me and emailed me and was going to offer his to be tested. His were upgraded by Neon, excuse me, Audio, who's one of the big people who does Carver refurbs, and he never followed through. That would have been kind of fun. I am going to do an upgraded Hafler amp. Ian has one that was sent to a company to, or he didn't send it, it was sent. And so that'll be coming up at some point. The 350 monoblocks. Oh, the RAM. Yeah, it's amazing how these things stop working when you let all the smoke out. Glue on the diodes. Yikes. Yeah, glue. I've seen glue corrode, you know, circuit boards and diodes. Get the glue out. Yeah, the Carver. Oh, Dan. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Dan, for watching. Yeah, I like the Carver gear. I haven't done any of his tubes amps. I'm basically, from my experience in life, is, you know, tube amps are nice they have a nice glow. I don't think they sound any warmer. And I proved that in a video, at least with my Klipsch La Scala speakers. And we did that video with the two Macintosh MC30 monoblocks versus the Bryson solid state. And there really wasn't any definite difference. I think a lot of it is, you know, if you like it, fine. But, you know, they get hot. And I listen to I'm looking at them. I'm not going to turn the camera, but they're over there. And, you know, sometimes I'll just turn them on and maybe I'll put a record on, you know, for one side of a record and just, you know, kind of mellow out, listen to music for, you know, just the sake of listening to music. And I'll do that every now and then. It's kind of fun. But if I were really cranking, I would use the Brysons with the Klipsch. They only put out 60 watts. My previous amp was like 225 watts to the La Scala's. The Crown SA2 that I did a video on, and I ended up selling that on eBay, and just decided to use the MC30s and the switch between that or the solid state Bryson. And that's a good, it works fine with the La Scalas. They're still one of my favorite speakers. But I mean, there's just something, you know, with the Macintosh, some of the Chrome stuff. I'm a Carver fanboy, sort of. I'm a Macintosh fanboy, sort of. I like the Marantz look. I wouldn't, you know, I think they look cool and they usually perform really well. But, you know, just like I think most of you that are watching, the big key is just get the speakers. Spend all your money on speakers that you like, and then, you know, everything else kind of fits in. I think as long as apparently AR9s, according to Ian, are amp killers, so you have to have the right amp. But you know, as long as you can drive the amp safely or drive the speaker safely with the amp you have, I think you'd be fine with, you know, most of your choices. With the tube gear, I get more hum. That's the biggest thing I notice. A lot of times you'll get a little bit more hum just with no music going on, and you can see that in the measurements. Although Richard brought over a Sonic Frontiers tube amp that I tested, and eventually there'll be a video on that. And that's a very heavy tube amp, and that thing was really quiet as far as tube amps go. But, you know, that's actually a rather nice amp. Like Sonic Frontiers SFS80, I think was the model number, and that'll be an upcoming video. It measured fairly good. Let's see, what else can I talk about? Oh, we have some, Jake. How many watts is enough for a medium size room? My speakers are 94 dB, 4 ohm. Well, so I use a sound pressure, an old Radio Shack sound pressure level meter, uh, and I think they sell digital ones now that are similar. And in my room, which is a normal size family room that I have a little Scales, 94 is dB SPL in that room is pretty loud. Your speakers are fairly efficient at 94 dB with 4 ohms. Jake, what kind of music do you like to listen to? I guess that would be my next question. If you uh, are listening to heavy metal, you're going to be playing real loud. If you're listening to classical, probably not so much. If you're listening to, Steely Dan or, let me just think. Oh, Al Jarreau. I guess it depends on the music. Maybe like early's rock. How much do you need? But your speakers should be efficient. I would say, from my experience from the the Wilson Watt 3 Puppy 2s, I think are around 89, 90 dB, maybe 92 dB efficiency. And 25, I would say 50 watts is a good amplifier for most levels. You'll probably get I get a 92 dB, which is loud. So yeah, they just need to be able to be handled at 4 ohms is the big deal. If you're gonna be playing loud, if you're listening to classical music and you're not really playing real loud, you're probably okay with 50 watts, something. And if it's vintage, a nice receiver would be fine. And most things drive the Wilson Watt 3 Puppy 2 speakers quite well with 50 watts, and those are more of a 6 ohm speaker. But the more the watts, the merrier. If you're somebody who listens to real loud music with 4 ohms, you would like a something in the 100 and over 100 watts, I would say. So Richard had some Klipschorns. My buddy Richard had some Klipschorns in the room where we did our last A/B test. He's since traded those, and I've listened to them. I like the Lascalas better than the Klipschorns, just mainly because I've listened to them in a more controlled environment, being my room. And in my room, which you can't really say, it's kind of like in that corner and then that corner, the Lascalas sit, and they're in the corners, so that reinforces in the corners up against the wall, so that reinforces the bass, and they do quite well. I mean, I like the sound of them. Sometimes I just sit back, with the music I listen to, and especially some female vocalists or just maybe Fleetwood Mac, something that may have a little bit lower bass in some of the tracks. It sounds really nice. It does a real good job. I doubt I'll ever part with the Lascalas. But the Klipschorns, I don't know. They just weren't in the right environment. I wasn't overly impressed when I heard them. And I heard them at a store, I believe, but they weren't really set up. That was before the store got the Jubilees. And I did listen to Jubilees, but it was set up real poorly that I almost wrote clips and ratted on the company. It's up in Phoenix. That was, had them set up, and it was just pathetic how little effort they had to having the Jubilees going. But the Jubilees are a nice speaker, even though they weren't set up good. If you have a chance to pick up a pair of Lascalas, and maybe they have the new ones. I did hear the new ones, but to me they didn't sound any better than the ones I have, although they're separable from the ones I have. But thank you, Dan. No problem. I'm trying to get opinions. It's just the speakers. I like. Some people don't like the horns. Sometimes they sound a little shrill for some people, even with the tube amp. But I really like the sound of them for a lot of music, and then I have another room where I do the testing for most of the channel. Now, in the room I'm in here, it's smaller, and I will do tests on some smaller tube amps with the La Scalas, just because the tube amps take most living rooms about 2 watts. Yeah, I would agree with Doug with that. With 40 or 50 watts, that's pretty good with, for most people. And sometimes I like to feel the bass with my main room. And this actually, I have a subwoofer in here that I can switch in and out. You can, for most of the stuff with the Scalas, to be honest, I have a little APM 500 power meter. I think I did a review on it. And it has like a 2 watt scale. And with the Scalas, I rarely get over 2 watts for most of my listening. So Douglas is dead on with that. Now, the Scalas are like the 90, they're probably in the 94 dB SPL area. I forget exactly. But like the Kef, I have a pair of Kef 107s, and I did a review on them. I've reviewed most of my gear, but not all of it. And the 107s will take as much as you can throw at them. Greetings from another collector in Brazil. Thank you. Una, that's nice. I've never been to Brazil. I was in Mexico City when I was a kid in an earthquake. That was fun. Human hearing is so nonlinear that you need to increase power tenfold. Yeah. Yeah, I have, sometimes you just like to listen aloud. I don't know. I like to feel the music sometimes. But just for most of what I do, and when I test things, and I say it in the videos, 40, 50 watts is fine for the Wilsons, that's a decent sized living room with a couch and a couple sofa chairs. So it has tile floor and a rug on top of it, and then there's skylights above it. So it's not the most ideal room, but yeah, I think 2 watts is great. And but you can never have enough power, although you have to be careful. You could fry your speakers. That's always a concern. But yeah, or you cannot have enough power. But yeah, for most people, I think 40, 50 watts is good. Yeah, don't let me forget. What are we getting on the time for? Oh, we're only up to 47 minutes, because it's going to be real easy on how to enter the drawing. It doesn't, I don't know, that says there's 12 people online and I got 5 likes. Oh, okay. And so basically what you'll do, I'll tell you now while I'm thinking of it, is if you go to the about on the channel, it has, stuff about me. I just updated my picture because I no longer have a mustache. And there's an email address, and I'll hold it up in just a moment. But all you have to do is email to that address. Just say I'm entering my name and say what your name is. If you want to give me all your information, that's fine. It would save me a step if you win. And then what'll happen is probably tomorrow morning at some point, or early afternoon. I would say get your stuff in by midnight tonight. And then I'll just take your name and email and put it on a line on an Excel spreadsheet. And then I'll do a random sort of those. So it'll pick out the rows that, I'll pick out a row, and then I'll do it again. And so I'll get 2 rows, and the emails according to those, rows will get a notification that you've won. And then you could, if you haven't given me your name, address, and all that, you could email me that then, and then I will forward that to the NeoHipo folks. And that's kind of how it'll work. But so if you don't know the email, I don't know if you can see that. That's kind of my email, vintage audio review at proton.me. So that's the email. It's also in the about section, and I believe it has my email, not the YouTube email, but the regular one. And And so I would get those in by, midnight tonight. Right now in Tucson, it's almost 2 p.m. And then, like I said, I'll randomly do it. And I try to get Douglas dinner, but he doesn't want to. I won't, like, it'll be just totally random. Like I said, and supposedly the NeoHipo is going to, email. I think they said you had to like them on Facebook or something. I will, defer that to them, and hopefully they'll, email you. It comes from China. They're I think in China or Taiwan, and they will, tell you what to do. I get, actually, if I have your address and your name, then they'll, send it to you. But they did give me this to review. This is one of the things they gave me. This is the AM2. It's like an all-in-one little thing that it has a Bluetooth, it has an FM tuner. And if you go on the channel, it says it's 300 watts, but we all know it's not really 300 watts. And this one, the back, actually has some banana jacks and input and output for line level. And these, those are for DC. You could plug it into DC. And so they sent it to me to review. They sent me another one like it, and it didn't perform well. This one performs a little better. This one, Doug would have a nice time with it. It uses a car audio amp chip in there. So it's an AB car audio chip. So that's how they call it, an AB amplifier. And anyway, I tested it, and well, the damping factor is outstanding on it for whatever reason, but so it has a real low output impedance, but it's good for maybe 10, 11 watts, but I listened to it for quite a while, and it sounds fine for, as long as you don't go past about 10 watts, but it actually sounded, decent. I was going to AB it against some other amplifier, but I didn't do that. But anyway, so they send me that, and maybe at one point I'll do a review, and that's a new thing, but for me, it's nice to say that I'm getting, stuff from, a company, and, testing their product, and then I'll tell them some things I don't like about it, or, give them ideas. What did Doug say? They heard me in the lobby. Okay. Bob, have 2 sobs, push-pull, 10-inch and seal cabinets, and 5 to 10 watts. Each. The broom is beginning to slide from a. Yeah, I'm kind of curious about 5 to 10 watts is not a lot for a sub. I would be surprised, Paul B. With 10 inches in a sealed, possibly. I found subs need more, but then I haven't dealt one with push-pull configuration like that, so maybe that does something different. Yeah, so I do have one little story back in my younger days when I was going to college, and I spent a session at Fort Huachuca, which is an Army base kind of about 70 miles southeast of Tucson, as a program where I took a semester off. I worked for the government in an electronics group, and so that way you could get experience. It's called the co-op program. But at this point, I had started DJing, and I had the Klipsch Scalas, and what was the other? The amplifier may have been the Sound. I don't know if it was the Sound Craftsman MA5002 or it was the Carver Cube. And I was like in a mobile home park. I didn't want to live in it. It was in a trailer. Like a single wide trailer. And so I would come home at lunchtime every now and then, and I would crank the stereo up for, during lunch for 10 minutes or something real loud. And back then it would have been most likely disco music. And I came home later. I went back to work, came home, and my trailer was dead. And I guess somebody got upset and they killed the breaker for the panel to my trailer. And they were next to me. So that was kind of, I went and I asked all the neighbors if they did that. But this is one of the lever ones. It was not a a circuit breaker. It was just like the main power to the trailer. So it wasn't like a trip. Somebody actually went out and, I confronted the neighbors, but nobody admitted that magic carpet ride. Other than other side of the pond, friends, our friends are the size of your walk-in. Oh, okay. Our living rooms are the size of your walk-in wardrobes. Oh, well, some people have great big walk-in wardrobes, rooms. Yeah, I appreciate everybody, showing up for a little while, and I'll try to do like every 1,000 subscribers. It gives me like incentive. So when I hit 4,000, I will probably do another one. I'm glad that more people signed up, and my wife didn't. You can see the door. Last time she came in her underwear. She was out weeding and had been sitting in the dirt, and she didn't know I was doing this, and she came in her underwear. And that was a fun moment. I had to pull the video down because of that. But anyway, that's kind of the thing. I do appreciate comments, and for the most part, people are really good. They enjoy sharing their experiences with some of the gear, or sometimes, they have questions. But when you ask about pairing with, this amp with this speaker, unless I have tested them, and the odds are, or listened to them, I can't really give much advice. But it's kind of fun. Like I said, I'm retired. It gives me a chance to learn about things, and just see different audio gear. I mean, we're all interested in audio, hence you're watching this, and it's kind of, I don't know if it's because it's like going back in time, sort of, but maybe now you can afford some of that gear you couldn't afford when you were, in college or high school, possibly. And well, you'll see on the video tomorrow. I don't want to say what it is, but I will just say that I ended up keeping that just because it's an antique. It's in the system, and I'll just say that. But it's because kind of there, it's cool, and the lights move, and you'll hopefully get that, and it'll be a little bit surprised. I don't think there's anybody nobody has tested one of these on YouTube, and most people don't test, I think, what I typically will test. And if you have ideas, I'm always up for those too. I like to do some other things. Like I did the tested fuses for distortion, the speaker wires, and different cables. Like I think I did some, audio cables, like line level cables that my son had, spent $150 for. So I get little things that just come up in normal life that are fun to test, and learn, see, is there really a difference? But just spend money on speakers that you like the sound of. That's the big key. And then have an amp that can drive them, and your preamp. People want to say, oh, I'm going to put a tube amp to get warmer sound. I can tell you from a lot of things I measure, the warmer sound is usually attributed to even harmonics, and it's not always the case with tube gear, and solid state gear often has even harmonics. So, who knows? My head's, oh yeah, Douglas was really stepping in there on the speaker wire stuff. That was a real popular one. I mean, it's nice when you get a lot of views on things by a lot. If I get 500 views for a week, to me that's doing real good, because it's audio measurements, and sometimes I tell you a little history about it, and kind of what I thought. Most things sound really okay for the most part. Sometimes speakers may sound not so good, or how many I do have a pair of, oh yeah, there's no tolerance for snake oil. So that's the kind of thing, if I get more things that are kind of like this fuses, to me was a snake oil thing. I in my audio video club, sometimes people are talking about plugging a DC block to block the DC. That was one. Things that make no sense from an engineering point of view, and they're just different kind of things I'll come up with trying to test and see if it makes a difference. But most people are pretty reasonable. But like Doug said, that speaker one is still my most viewed video, and it didn't start. It was just something I thought I would do because I had access to those, what were the $8,500 a pair, speaker wires, and arrows pointing certain ways. I don't know how easy audio signals know which way to go, whether it cares whether it's going through one way of a wire or the other way. There's just no real rhyme or reason to it. But if you think of any ideas of things to test, like I said, my biggest one I'm excited about, which I'm going to, from excited, bit of a nerd, is the not the Levinson, the Krell preamp. I'm going to go ahead, get my instrument set up, do a cold reading of the frequency response, and then the THD at, say, 5 watts. And then I'm going to turn it off for a half hour, and then I'm going to turn it on for an hour and measure it again. RCA cables. Doug, I did that. I did the one with the RCA cables with the 1/8-inch jack on the end. And I was kind of proud because I got my hair dryer out, and I had the motor noise going and all that. But that's easy to do because that's a AV switcher, an old school audio video switcher that I have, that when you had the video and the stereo, and its performance is really good. They're mechanical switches, and I've measured the isolation and the between the channels, and it doesn't really have any loss. And so that's real easy to do a switch, real time. I'm a big believer in, you have to do it real time. If there's a difference, a major difference between 2 amps or preamps, you should hear it, almost instantly, because you're cutting right in the middle of a song. People want to then go, they're going to hook up the cables to the other thing, and your audio memory for trying to hear the difference, I think, is really, really short. For speakers, speakers are just a taste thing, I think, for a lot. People like a certain sound or this and that. I think the Harman Kardon JBL did a study and found out people like a flat frequency response in their speakers, but they're very personal. Some people like planar speakers, electrostatics, box speakers, what have you. A lot of people must like those realistic Mach 2s because those are real popular. Oh, I do have a JBL speaker. What about the sound of mains cable? Paul B, Doug, that's all crap. Actually, Eddie did a test of it. Eddie at Kiss Analog, as well as Amir, and it makes absolutely no difference. Now, if you want a nice looking cable and you want to spend money on cables and they look nice and you want to do that, but go do it. But if you're going to tell me you heard the sound being warmer, I'm going to, say sneak. Okay, Charles, now you're good. I'm going to say, okay, if you want to do that, but they've done tests, and it's real easy to test something like that when you can measure the performance. Usually Amir does it by measuring a high performing DAC with and without the cable plugged in, and there's no difference. And it makes sense because the first thing your power supply does to your device is convert that AC to DC. And the best argument is, I'm going over an hour, but I don't got anything else to do other than look for another car. No, I got to test that. But, and I'll get to you in a moment, Dak, with the reclocker thing. What Paul B must be suspended of the static hell of a carpet. Well, no, nothing about carpet. Yeah, that's all crap. So when I worked at a big defense contractor, and my last one of my last pieces of gear costs $250,000 10 years ago. It's a network analyzer. It measures microwave stuff. And this is an Agilent or Keysight, whatever they are now, piece of gear. And all they come with is the standard cord that you would get with, any electrical piece of gear. And if they had if they thought it made a difference, they would have supplied that real expensive piece of gear with a real high-end cable like that, and they didn't. I don't know anything about a reclocker, to be honest, Charles. I've heard them. From my experience was with DAC, they measure pretty good. I would be surprised if people can hear differences between most DACs. Maybe Douglas has more experience with that. I haven't tried testing them. I recently learned how to measure frequency response on a DAC, so I can look at that and see how it comes out. But yeah, I don't know why you would reclock. I think DACs are probably pretty good. Oh my, the dreaded cables. Oh, cable stands. Okay, yeah. So when I went to PS Audio and Paul McGowan's company. It was maybe a year and a half ago in Boulder, and just the nicest group of people. He wasn't there at the time, but at the end of the tour, which took about probably almost 2 hours because I asked so many questions and talked to everybody in the techs and how they did. Anyway, they had the stands for the expensive speaker cables. They're FRS 30, their new speaker at the time, and they had the Bascom H. King power amp mono blocks, and they had all the stuff, and it sounded good. But they had the cables up on the stands on the floor, and even their employee there kind of questioned that. Here's proof by do you remember? I don't watch. Is this Richie? Mr. Richie? Is that GR Research? What's his name? No, what's the guy from GR Research? I don't really follow him because I get annoyed because of all the stuff he does. But you have an audio signal. So if you have an audio signal and you just have wire on the ground, and it's 60 hertz, or your speaker cables, if you're talking speaker cables up, it's audio, it's not affected by the ground so much. So that's all, a lot of people are into the audio thing, and that's part of the hobby for them to do this stuff. And they like to talk about it. I don't know why you would reclock. I don't think you can hear, the difference between DACs. You can measure some differences, but I don't think when you're talking about SNRs, better than 100 in frequency response is what they are. I don't know what you're going to hear. We can measure, so much stuff. Maybe there's a phase difference between the outputs. I would be worried about other stuff, but I would save your money. But there's people that want that. If they want to put their cables on there, and they don't have any engineering background, and somebody sold them that, and they think it makes it sound better, well, go for it. But if you're going to tell me that it sounds better and I can prove it, well, let's do it. I can't go by just your ears. But if you say it sounds better to you, I can't argue with you on that. But I don't know about the closely spaced inductors. We're still talking audio frequencies, less than 20 kilohertz or 20 kilohertz, a little bit more than that, maybe. Most of us can't hear past 10, I'm guessing. Just transfers. I don't know. A long time ago, I was at a swap meet up in Phoenix as a high school kid when I was probably 16 or 17, and there was a guy that did a demo. I'll never forget this. This is back when you had just your coil coming out of the car, and I don't know if it was a 6-cylinder or 8-cylinder engine, and he had this little coil, and you just put that on the top of your coil. Back then, just the standard, coil with, I just had a couple terminals on it, and or you had your output that went to your distributor cap, and the car was running rough, and he put that little coil thing right on top, and it must have been some sort of transformer, and then the car started running. It didn't have its miss anymore, and I always wondered, because I bought one, of course, and it never made a difference. But sometimes you can be fooled by some of this stuff. That maybe he's flipping a switch somewhere on the side that puts in the other cylinder. I don't know what it was, but when you listen to the demo, it was, or when you saw the car and then he put that in, it made it better. And I kind of wonder sometimes with audio if that may be happening with stuff. But anyway, that's kind of it. Well, I appreciate everybody. We got 8 people stuck around to listen to me rattle on, and this is kind of fun. I loved him. 0.1%. Oh, yeah, and cables at minus. Yeah, I love demonstrating 0.1% THD harmonic on a. It's not terribly obvious, yet reviewers find it so easy to hear nuances. Yeah. If you look, there's a Bob Carver did a paper for stereo review or audio in the 70s, and you can find it. And he talked about how much we can hear for distortion. It was like him and a bunch of people from, I don't know if it's audio or stereo review, they got together and they did tests and introduced distortion, and it, for a tone, it's pretty high, but almost 1% maybe before you hear distortion. And you have to read the whole thing. And then with music, it's even higher before you hear it. So, with me, you measure the, and I have the article. If you emailed me, I could probably send you a copy of it, a PDF, if I forget how big it is. But, this was like with Hirsch, it was the people that did reviews, and it was very well respected names for audio folks. And, but yeah, 1% THD is pretty darn small. And, I consider, that really, really small. I mean, stuff I measure is 0.00, some of it. But yeah, you're not going to hear it. And can we hear, what does it sound like? Yeah, I think 3% you would hear with the tone, depending on the actual frequency of the tone. I believe it was up in the 1%. I'd have to pull that article out. I wish I was better prepared. Maybe the next one I'll have it already pulled up, but it's very good. We listen to music with our ears. Our brain interprets music. Charles, I won't disagree with you. Yep. If it makes an audible difference and enhances my involvement in the music. Yeah. That I have no problem with that. I don't know if you're on the 20%, Doug. I think that's a little high. I guess it would depend on what you're listening to, but I can tell you from just my own experiences with some of the amps I measured and then listened to them live that, a couple percent with, normal music you may not hear. But yeah, it's exactly right. If we listen, if you see something in the cable, it makes an auto and it enhances your involvement. That's kind of the thing. I get that. That's worth the money. However you spend it, you can spend your money however you want. And, but when I have friends go, oh, I got to do this, I got to have my speakers, the things up because it'll improve the bass or improve the image. I kind of just wonder if it does to them, fine, but you can't really, I think we can measure things out. The whole audio thing, when you start about it, it starts from a signal, and we can measure what happens to that chain electronically till it gets to the speakers. Even when it gets to the speakers, we can measure a lot about it, but I can't measure what your brain is, thinking and interpreting and adding to your enjoyment. Like I said, I like listening to the tubes. It's a nice thing to listen to my, the tube amp, see them glowing, that kind of thing. But I know that it doesn't sound really any better than my Bryston. But I enjoy the glow of the tubes. There's something. But yeah, spend your money how you want. If you want to buy $8,500 cables, they look cool and all that, and whatever, that's your thing. But if you say it starts doing different things, then that's just where I, may or may not get into a discussion. Yeah, it's from clipping and limiting the mix. Yeah, I have to look at that thing. I think that was like 3% was what they were saying with their study that he did, and this was in the 70s, I believe, mid 70s, early 80s, that Bob and those other people did. But it was before he had, I think, the cubes out. At that point, I think he was just with phase linear. At that point, anyway. Yeah, I mean, if I had monoblocks out on the floor, and you would want some nice speaker cables. I think some of these Chinese stuff from like I buy from AliExpress sometimes, and I've gotten some audio cables from them. Line level cables, and they had the arrows on them. Telling you which way to go. Of course, I measured them. It made no difference. I haven't done a video on it, but they can look good, and that's, I don't have any problem with all that. But yeah, it's a hobby. Just spend your money as you see fit. Older mixes actually got 1%. Yeah, I don't think we're gonna hear that. I think the new standard. I'll go on just another minute. The new IHF standard, or they're testing amplifiers now at 1%, is where they hit the 1% THD for the power rating. So that's part of the, I don't know if it's a CES or SEMA, or that's kind of like the new way of looking at things rather than going at 0.00. So that's just like a measurement thing. If you're less than 0.5% for most things, it's pretty good. Maybe not so much a preamp, just because other preamps should, perform real well. Paul B. Accessories. Oh yeah. There was a comment. I guess I'll keep going. There was a comment on the speaker test, and there were a couple people that worked for audio places back in the early days of Monster that commented about how that was like their big profit was the Monster cables, and that was what they did. We were told to sell cables. But like I said, if you want to you spend 50 grand on a pair of speakers, and you want to spend money on that just because that's what you do, that's that's your thing. But from an engineering point of view, I can't see how that's going to improve your imaging or that that sort of thing. Yeah, thank you, Jake. For me and like my two main audio buddies, Richard and Ian, who are lovingly audio hoarders, it's about the gear a lot, and they like that, or they got a good deal on it. And with me, I like it. I like to crank my music every now and then, and it's like taking your car out every now and then, getting up to a certain speed. I need to point out for the few, just so kind of, I am a little bit self-conscious. Sometimes the lighting in my stuff, it makes me look like I have like something wrong with my mouth or my lip or something. It's just the lighting. There's nothing really odd. And my hair, if I look at my old videos, I had an afro for a while, which was left. Sometimes I do just have a bad hair day, I'll wear a hat, or just kind of, if you're wondering, it just depends when I get ready to shoot the video. And I was hit by a car on my bicycle a little over a year ago, and lucky to be alive. And I wasn't wearing a helmet. I do now. And the lady hit me real early in the morning when I go bike riding, because it was kind of in the summer. And so my shoulder is dislocated. So I think it's, I'm trying to point this one here. So sometimes if you look, and it doesn't hurt. It doesn't affect the motion, but it just looks a little odd. So I'm a little conscientious of that a little bit, but that's kind of why. And to have it put in, it's not worth doing. Actually, you can't really see it in this one, but it's the shoulder here. But I guess you can see it anyway. So it's just kind of an odd, little goings on. I ride my bike several times a week, but I just was crossing and the car hit me, and Yeah, and if you look at some of those videos from probably October, I may have had cuts on my face, or that's why, because it flipped over and had to have stitches on my head and back of my head, and then my face, road rash. And anyway, best audit. Noel Lee found the solution to the problem. And okay. Nobody has. Oh, Lee started Monster. Okay. Oh yeah, I know that. I look at myself, and that's why. Plus, one of my teeth is fake from when I was like, it's amazing the glue they use. But you remember those time bombs that you had as a kid? You would like turn it, looked like a little bomb, and you would turn the top. It had like a little wick on it. It was plastic. You would turn the top, and then you would like do hot potato pass it around to the next person, and then when it would stop clicking, you were like had to get out of the line. And I guess I wasn't paying attention, and it hit my tooth and chipped it. And then anyway, probably 40 years ago I had it replaced, but it's whatever glue they use to put the crown on. It's amazing that it's held up. So it reflects light differently. So that's kind of why. Yeah. I just had to say that. Just little things that bug me. Maybe one day I'll get fixed. Yeah, no, I get it. Yeah, nobody solution that nobody had. Yeah, you look in the old Macintosh manuals for amplifiers. They tell you how many feet of zip, what's gauge zip, lamp cord you would use for your hooking up to your speakers, depending on the distance you were going. And so it was good enough for Macintosh. Sound and Vision magazine conducted between Monster and the proverbial lamp cord results large assay of what it was I know that he comes up, but I don't watch him. Kind of a big guy. I think he's in Seattle. Tests expensive stuff, and he was doing something with speaker wires, but he tests really. He doesn't test. He gives you his opinion on really expensive things. And yeah, I didn't care what his results were, because, like Doug said, we know as engineers, we kind of know that it's not going to make a big difference for, most every situation. But if you want to spend your money on it, it makes you feel better, you think it sounds better, okay. But if you ever want to sit down with me and we'll do an A/B test, with or without something, speaker stands or whatever, then that would be fun. So anyway, well, I am going to call it a day. I'm very happy that I was able to talk and you guys were able to comment. And we'll do it. I average a little over 100 subscribers a month, regardless of, seems to be whatever happens. So probably in 10 months or so, maybe when I hit 4,000 subscribers, I'll do another one. That's kind of like a fun thing to do. And I said, it's just, I don't have any merchandise. I don't sell anything. Like I said, the only thing that I get is, sometimes Ayima has sent me a few things, and then NeoHipo has sent me a few things. Yes, thanks, Bob. I thank you for sticking around. Yeah, I'm glad it's fun. Already in the next slide. Well, if I get more people and I get, more people doing it, and remember to email me, like I said, just your, well, I'll have your email, but you could just have your name. And then if you want to give me your whole address, it will save me a step. But I'm going to delete the emails, and I don't keep a list. I'm not going to send stuff off. I mean, it's just not my thing. The few of you that, I know will talk via email and all that, but I do appreciate you stopping by. And I don't like the glow. I guess I could have done better. Maybe next time I'll try setting up in the room where I do the testing stuff, and we'll go from there. So once again, enjoy the rest of your weekend, and remember to send in a what do I call it? Send in an entry to the random drawing, and I promise it will be random. So, okay, thank you so much. Until next time, have a good day or night.